Sometimes, life tests us in ways we never expect. Sometimes the people we trust, the people we raise, the people we welcome into our homes, become the very ones who betray us. But hear me today, a betrayed heart is not a broken heart, it is a weapon waiting to rise. This is not just a story about a mother who walked into her home and found strangers tearing apart her room. This is not just about a daughter-in-law who thought arrogance could replace respect. No, this is a story about what happens when a quiet soul decides she will no longer be silent. When she opened that door early that day, she stepped into a nightmare. Dust everywhere. Walls broken, workers hammering like they owned the place. And standing in the middle of that chaos was a woman who should have shown respect. But instead, she declared with a smirk, "We're moving in soon." In that moment, something awakened inside the mother. Not fear, not weakness, but a fire. Because betrayal doesn't weaken strong people, it transforms them. It sharpens their minds. It steals their spirit. And it gives birth to a kind of revenge that is not wild and chaotic, but precise, powerful, and unstoppable. As the mother watched quietly, you would think she was defeated. But behind that calm face, strategy was forming. Behind those steady eyes, truth was gathering. Behind that silence, justice was sharpening its sword. And what happened next? What she uncovered inside her own walls, what she set into motion, would turn a bold daughter-in-law into a terrified, screaming woman the next morning when the police arrived. This is not just revenge. This is not just justice. This is the rise of a woman who refused to be erased. So sit tight, lean in. Because what you're about to hear will grip you, shake you, and remind you of one powerful truth. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They plan their revenge in silence and strike with thunder. The house was supposed to be quiet that afternoon. She had come home early, earlier than she had in years, expecting to slip into her room, rest her aching feet, and enjoy a few hours of peace. But the moment she stepped through the front door, the sound hit her like a punch, drilling, hammering, the sharp crack of wood being torn apart. It was a noise that didn't belong in her home, not without her permission. She froze, keys still in her hand, as dust floated through the hallway. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Her heart pounded as she climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. When she pushed open her bedroom door, the world she knew collapsed. Her sanctuary, her private space, was destroyed. The walls were open, insulation torn out. Her furniture was pushed aside. Her closet doors were off their hinges. 3 strange men in dusty boots were ripping apart her room like it was a construction site, and not one of them had the decency to look surprised that she was standing there, trembling with disbelief. "Mom, we were told to start today," one of them said casually, as if demolishing her room was no more concerning than changing a light bulb. She felt heat rise in her chest, anger, confusion, betrayal. She had never hired workers. She had never approved renovations. She had never even discussed any plans to change her room. It was hers. Her memories, her privacy, her life. Who dared touch it? Her first instinct was to shout, to demand answers, to push them out with the authority she had earned after a lifetime of sacrifice. But something, an instinct, a whisper of intuition, told her to pause. Something about the workers' confidence, their lack of fear, their casual attitude, told her this wasn't a mistake. Someone had given an order. Someone had planned this. And she already had a chilling suspicion of who it might be. Her hand clenched on the doorframe as she scanned the room, observing every detail. The workers weren't just replacing drywall, they were removing sections of flooring, drilling into beams, opening spaces that had remained untouched for decades. They weren't renovating. They were searching or planting. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just disrespect. This wasn't bad communication. This was intentional. She stepped further inside, keeping her voice low, steady, and deceptively calm. "Who told you to do this?" They exchanged looks. One shrugged. "Your daughter-in-law said everything needed to be ready before the move." Before the move. The word slammed into her chest like a cold wave. She didn't need further explanation. This wasn't confusion, it was invasion. Her son's wife had not only violated her privacy, but had taken control of her home, as if ownership belonged to her, and the strange arrogance of it confirmed what the mother had silently feared for months. A plan was unfolding behind her back. A plan she was never meant to discover. But now she had seen it, and nothing would be the same. She felt her pulse steady, her breath deepen. This wasn't the moment to explode. This was the moment to watch, to understand, to plan. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself with words. Sometimes it smashes through your bedroom wall with a sledgehammer. And that day, amid the dust and destruction of her personal space, the mother realized the first undeniable truth: something dark was happening under her roof. Something meant to push her out, erase her presence, remove her voice. But they had made one fatal mistake. They underestimated her, and now she was awake. The next morning, the house was too quiet. Quiet in the dangerous way a storm goes silent before it unleashes its fury. The mother walked into the kitchen with the weight of yesterday still pounding in her chest. Dust from her torn, apart bedroom still clung to her slippers. The smell of broken drywall was still stuck in her hair. Her sanctuary had been violated. Her trust shattered. Yet she walked with calm steps, every movement measured, every breath slow and controlled. Because she understood something now: someone under her roof had mistaken her silence for weakness. And that's when she saw her, her daughter-in-law, standing by the kitchen island like she was claiming territory. She sipped coffee from the mother's favorite mug, leaning against the counter with a confidence far too bold for someone who should have been apologizing. But there was no apology in her face. No regret, no shame. There was only the smug, self-assured expression of a woman who believed she had already won. The mother felt a coldness spread in her chest, but she did not speak. She waited. She watched. She analyzed. Her daughter-in-law finally looked up, meeting her eyes with a smirk that sent a deep, sharp ache through the mother's heart. "Oh," she said casually, like she was speaking to a servant. "Good morning. I'm glad you're up. I wanted to let you know. We're moving in soon. I want the master bedroom completely remodeled before we start shifting our things." The words were a slap. Raw, cutting, disrespectful. And the tone was even worse. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a discussion. It was a declaration, a claim, a takeover. The mother stared at her, holding back the instinct to respond with the fury burning in her veins. Instead, she let her daughter-in-law keep talking, exposing every thread of her entitlement. "We need more space," she continued. "And honestly, this house is too big for one person anyway. You know how families are supposed to live together. It makes more sense if we take the master room. You can move into the guest bedroom. It's better for you, better for her." How easily the girl rewrote her boundaries. How effortlessly she dismissed the reality that this house had been built brick by the mother and her late husband. How quickly she tried to remove the woman who had given so many years, so much sweat, so much sacrifice. But the mother didn't respond. She simply watched the young woman's audacity unfold. Each word was revealing something deeper: a plan, a motive, a desire for control. This wasn't about family. This wasn't about space. This was about power. about pushing the mother out of her own home, about claiming what was never hers. Her daughter-in-law continued, encouraged by the mother's silence, mistaking restraint for surrender. The workers said they'll need another 2 days, maybe 3. I already ordered new flooring, new wall paint, even a new closet design. You'll love it. I picked everything myself. The mother felt a slow, cold smile forming inside her mind, not on her face, but deep in her spirit, because now she understood the truth. The renovation wasn't the beginning of the plan. It was the middle. Something had been happening long before she walked into that destroyed bedroom. Something that involved lies whispered in corners, conversations behind closed doors, decisions made without her knowledge. Her daughter-in-law had been preparing for a takeover, inch by inch, moment by moment. And now she was bold enough to speak it out loud. But what the young woman didn't know, couldn't even imagine, was that she had just set in motion the exact downfall she hoped to avoid. Because the mother, the woman she had tried to step over, had just awakened to the full picture. And when a quiet woman becomes aware, she becomes dangerous. So the mother said nothing. She simply nodded, turned, and walked away, letting her daughter-in-law believe she had won. But inside, a fire was blazing. Not the fire of anger, no, the fire of strategy, the fire of revenge, the fire of a woman who has been pushed too far and has finally decided to strike back with precision. The daughter-in-law thought she had taken control, but she had no idea she had just given the mother exactly what she needed: proof of her intentions. And proof is deadly. Silence can be a weapon, a shield, a trap. And the mother wielded it with the skill of someone who had learned, through years of hardship, that explosions only benefit the guilty. Silence, on the other hand, reveals everything. So she slipped into the background of her own home, watching her daughter-in-law and the workers with the cold intelligence of a hunter studying prey. She observed their movements, their conversations, the rushed glances they exchanged when they thought she wasn't looking. She noticed how the daughter-in-law checked the workers' progress obsessively, like she was hiding something inside the walls, not simply rebuilding them. The mother's eyes were everywhere, her ears sharp, her mind alive. She didn't interrupt. She didn't question. She didn't show fear. She let them expose themselves. She saw her daughter-in-law whispering outside on the phone, her voice low and angry. She caught fragments. She saw it too early. No, we can't delay. It has to be done before he signs. Those words chilled her. Before he signs. What was her son about to sign? Why was the renovation so urgent? Why did it matter what the mother saw? The pieces, once scattered and confusing, began aligning. The daughter-in-law wasn't planning a family move in. She was orchestrating a takeover, legal, financial, or worse. Something aimed at stripping the mother of her home, her authority, maybe even her inheritance. And the mother knew something else's schemes only appear confident on the surface. Underneath, they tremble. Late that night, she tiptoed near the construction area. Dust coated the floors, tools lay scattered, pieces of her life were tossed like trash. She pressed her fingers against the half-open wall and felt something foreign inside. Something that didn't belong. Something the workers had placed there intentionally. Her breath caught. They weren't renovating. They weren't repairing. They were planting. Evidence. Contraband. Something that could frame her, ruin her, or force her out with the law on their side. And her daughter-in-law thought the mother would never discover it until it was too late. But the mother did discover it. She always did. Because she wasn't weak. She wasn't blind. She wasn't a victim. She was a woman who learned long ago that when someone tries to take everything from you, you don't shout. You watch, you calculate, you wait, then you strike. So she spent the next hours gathering every detail: photos, recordings, timestamps, actions, conversations. She built a case quietly, efficiently, brilliantly, while the guilty ones slept peacefully, believing their victory was guaranteed. They had no idea the mother was already 3 steps ahead. They had no idea she was preparing something far more powerful than confrontation. She was preparing justice, real justice, the kind that knocks on doors at dawn, the kind that leaves the guilty trembling. And when the morning came, when the sun rose up, when her daughter-in-law screamed, "Dowich wire Paulus, A.T.O. your dough!" the mother finally allowed herself to smile, because revenge doesn't always come in anger. Sometimes it comes in the form of truth, cold, undeniable, and delivered at the perfect moment by a woman no one should have underestimated. The truth didn't reveal itself all at once. It came in fragments, strange whispers, suspicious movements, lingering glances exchanged between the workers and the daughter-in-law. The mother had learned long ago that evil rarely marches through the front door. It creeps, it hides, it disguises itself as something harmless, and in her home, it disguised itself as renovation. But her instincts told her something far more sinister was unfolding. She watched how the workers opened walls that had no reason to be touched, how they drilled deeper than necessary, how they carefully slid objects inside the hollow spaces, sealing them away like secrets no one was ever supposed to find. Each movement was too precise, too coordinated, too quiet. This wasn't construction, this was concealment. One afternoon, when the workers had taken a break, and the house fell into an uneasy silence, the mother entered the half-destroyed bedroom. The scent of dust and fresh paint couldn't mask the darkness she felt in the air. She walked slowly across the room, her fingers tracing the newly cut drywall. Then something happened. Something small, but sharp enough to freeze her mid-step. Her slipper brushed against a plastic bag sticking out from under a stack of boards. She bent down, her heart pounding, and pulled it gently. What she found inside turned her stomach: packets of illegal substances, heavy, sealed, unmistakable. She dropped the bag as if it burned her hand. For a moment, the world around her blurred. Her breath grew thin. The room spun. Why was this here? Who put it here? Why her room? Then the truth slammed into her chest with terrifying clarity. Her daughter-in-law wasn't just trying to take the house. She was trying to bury the mother under a crime, frame her, ruin her, push her out not by force, but by legal destruction. And this wasn't just one packet. She looked toward the exposed wall and saw the evidence of careful placement. Spaces carved open deliberately, marked, and refilled by workers whose loyalty didn't belong to her. The renovation was nothing but a mask, an elaborate scheme to hide something illegal inside the home so it could be discovered later, with the mother taking the fall. The realization sent a cold shiver through her bones. She leaned against the broken wall for balance, her chest tightening with disbelief and fury. All this time she thought the girl was simply entitled, greedy, maybe manipulative. But this was calculated malice. This was criminal. This was dangerous. And they thought she would never know. They thought she would simply move aside while her life was systematically destroyed. They thought the quiet widow was easy prey. But the mother had survived storms far worse than a scheming daughter-in-law. She had buried a husband, raised a son alone, worked 2 jobs, fought battles life threw at her with nothing but grit and prayer. And now someone dared to plant poison in the walls of her home. Someone dared to erase her, to rewrite the narrative so she ended up behind bars while they smiled and took everything she built. Her fear slowly morphed into something colder. Steel, sharp resolve. She picked up the incriminating bag again, but this time with gloves. She inspected it, memorizing every detail, every number, every symbol. Then she photographed the open walls, the planted evidence, the workers' tools. Every picture was a weapon, every detail a thread that would unravel the scheme. She wasn't the one being hunted anymore. She was the one gathering the trap. As she walked out of the room, her pulse was no longer frantic. There was a strange calm in her steps. The daughter-in-law had planted hidden truths inside the walls, believing they would destroy her. But those hidden truths were about to become the very evidence that saved her and destroyed the real enemy. The walls meant to frame her would soon testify against the ones who built the trap. Revenge, the mother knew, is most powerful when it is silent, patient, and precise. She didn't scream. She didn't confront. She didn't accuse. Instead, she moved through the house like a ghost, calm on the outside but burning with controlled fire within. Her daughter-in-law believed she had the perfect plan. Hide illegal evidence in the walls. Call the authorities at the right moment, and let the mother's life collapse under false accusations. But what she didn't know was that she had underestimated the woman she thought was weak. The mother had lived enough life to recognize when someone was trying to destroy her, and she had survived too much to let her home become her prison, so she formed a plan. A strategy so clean, so flawless, so devastating that it would turn her daughter-in-law's weapon back onto her. First, she documented everything, every hidden packet, every freshly drilled cavity, every suspicious marking inside the walls. Her fingers did not shake as she photographed the evidence. Her heart didn't race when she recorded the workers whispering outside. Her mind was sharp, steady, focused. She was no longer reacting, she was hunting. She collected proof like a surgeon extracting poison. She took photos from multiple angles, recorded videos with timestamps, saved receipts, captured the workers' faces, and even copied the shipping label of the illegal packages the daughter-in-law thought were perfectly concealed. She moved with the calmness of a woman who had already decided she would win. Then came the second step, understanding the motive. She spent hours listening, behind half-open doors, near the staircase, from the shadows of her hallway at night. She heard her daughter-in-law hissing into her phone. "Once she's out of the picture, we'll finalize everything. My lawyer said the house will automatically." The mother didn't need the rest. She heard enough. Legally destroyed. Erased. Her son, blinded by love, oblivious to the darkness beside him, was being manipulated. And that broke her heart. But heartbreak did not stop her. It gave her new strength. The third step, securing allies. She quietly contacted an investigative officer she trusted. Someone who had known her late husband. Someone who knew she wasn't capable of the things her daughter-in-law planned to frame her for. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She simply delivered the facts. The illegal substances hidden in her walls, the workers planting evidence, the conversations she overheard, the photos, the recordings. Everything. The officer listened, stunned, unable to believe a family member could orchestrate such cruelty. But the evidence was irrefutable. And with every photo the mother provided, the officer's expression hardened. "Don't worry," he said. "We will take care of this the right way." The mother nodded. She trusted him. But she also knew she had to protect herself completely. So she sent copies of the evidence to a secure email account, printed backup files and hid them, even placed a small camera overlooking the construction area just in case her daughter-in-law tried something new. Her silence became her armor. Her preparation became her power. Then she waited, calm, still, deadly. Her daughter-in-law walked through the house with arrogant confidence, believing the mother was defeated. But little did she know she was walking straight into a trap crafted with intelligence and precision. The mother made sure the police would arrive at the perfect moment. When the evidence was undeniable, when the workers were still involved, when her daughter-in-law was present to witness her plan shatter. The night before the police raid, the mother stood alone in her destroyed bedroom, staring at the patched-up sections of the wall that hid so many secrets. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and felt a shift inside her. She was no longer the quiet widow who endured everything silently. She had become a strategist, a fighter, a woman who had reclaimed her strength. The storm was coming, but she was not afraid, because this time, the storm was hers. The morning began with a deceptive calm, the kind of stillness that hides a thunderclap beneath it. The daughter-in-law stood in the kitchen, humming to herself, scrolling through her phone with a smug smile. She believed everything was falling into place. The renovations were nearly complete, the illegal evidence was safely hidden, and soon she would place one anonymous call that would destroy the mother completely. She imagined the headlines, the accusations, the disgrace. In her mind, she was already celebrating her victory, but victories built on evil always collapse. At exactly 7:14 a.m., a sharp knock shook the front door, not a gentle knock, not a neighborly knock. A firm, echoing knock, the kind that sends dread crawling through your spine. The mother was sitting calmly in the living room waiting. Her hands folded, her face still, her heartbeat steady, because she knew who stood outside. The daughter-in-law frowned, irritated. "Who on earth knocks like that this early?" she muttered, storming toward the door. But when she opened it, her arrogance drained from her body like water from a broken glass. Police officers, 3 of them, badges visible, faces stern, purpose clear. "Good morning, ma'am," the lead officer said sharply. "We have a warrant to search the premises." The daughter-in-law's face twisted, first in confusion then in fear. What? Why? What are you talking about? There must be some mistake." But the officers didn't waste time on her panic. They stepped inside with authority, their boots heavy against the floor. The mother watched the unfolding scene with silent composure. Her daughter-in-law spun toward her, eyes wide, trembling. "What did you do?" she spat, voice cracking with hysteria. The mother didn't answer. She simply watched. Because this moment, the very moment the daughter-in-law had intended for her, was now reversed. The officers moved upstairs immediately, straight to the master bedroom, straight to the walls, straight to the evidence. The daughter-in-law chased after them, screaming, "No! No, don't touch that! You can't just..." But it was too late. Within minutes, the officers uncovered exactly what the mother had shown them: packets of illegal substances, hidden deliberately in the walls, tucked inside beams, placed behind panels. The workers' fingerprints were on them. The daughter-in-law's signature was on the renovation orders. The entire operation was exposed with brutal clarity. One officer looked down at her with a cold expression. "Mom, you have the right to remain silent." The daughter-in-law collapsed before he could finish, dropping to her knees, her face pale, her hands shaking so violently she couldn't even wipe the tears spilling down her cheeks. "No! No! This wasn't supposed to happen! This wasn't for me!" she screamed. She was supposed to. She was. It was her. She pointed frantically at the mother. But the mother didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't break, because the truth was on her side, and the evidence was undeniable. The officers ignored the daughter-in-law's desperate accusations. They had already seen the timestamps, the photos, the proof. They already knew the truth. and her breakdown only confirmed her guilt. As they pulled her to her feet, her screams filled the house, raw, broken, wild. "This isn't fair! She tricked me! She tricked all of us!" But the mother simply stood there, watching the collapse of the woman who had tried to destroy her, watching the failure of a plan built on greed and deception, watching justice take back the house that belonged to her. And when the daughter-in-law was finally escorted outside, still screaming, still begging, still blaming the world for her crimes, the mother closed her eyes and exhaled, not in relief, not in triumph, but in peace. Because she didn't win through violence, or rage, or bitterness. She won with truth, with patience, with wisdom, with strength. The daughter-in-law's breakdown wasn't just the end of a plot. It was the beginning of the mother's freedom. In the end, justice did not arrive quietly. It walked through the front door with badges, authority, and undeniable truth. What began as a mother's quiet suspicion turned into a masterfully executed plan of righteous revenge. She had been pushed, disrespected, and nearly erased from her own home by the very people who should have honored her. But instead of collapsing under the weight of betrayal, she rose with strategy, patience, and unshakable strength. The daughter-in-law thought she was clever, thought she could use manipulation and arrogance to take over the house. She believed her lies were airtight, her schemes untouchable, her entitlement justified. She brought workers, bulldozers, and secrets into a home that never belonged to her. Thinking the woman who raised her husband was powerless, she built her confidence on deception, thinking no one would uncover what she was hiding inside the walls. But the truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way out. And on this day, it exploded with consequences she never saw coming. The mother, calm like a storm before the lightning strikes, watched everything. She collected every detail, every suspicious decision, every word spoken in entitlement. She let them think she was weak. She let them think she was confused. She let them think they were winning. Then, at the perfect moment, she flipped the entire game. Not with screaming, not with chaos, but with undeniable evidence delivered directly to the hands of the law. So when the police knocked that next morning, it wasn't confusion. It was justice arriving right on time. The daughter-in-law's scream wasn't of surprise. It was the sound of her own guilt crashing down on her. Her knees buckled. Her confidence shattered. Her lies collapsed like the walls she tried to corrupt. The mother watched silently, not with vengeance in her eyes, but with triumph, because the truth had spoken louder than revenge ever could. This story reminds us of a powerful truth: never underestimate the quiet ones. A calm mind is a dangerous weapon. A patient heart is a strategic force. And a mother who has been betrayed, yet chooses to fight with wisdom rather than rage, becomes unstoppable. The daughter-in-law tried to take her home. Instead, she lost her freedom. She tried to break someone's peace. Instead, her own life crumbled. And the mother, she reclaimed her home, her dignity, and her rightful authority. She proved that revenge is not always loud. Sometimes it comes dressed in justice. Sometimes it arrives at dawn with flashing lights. And sometimes it is served by someone who smiles quietly, knowing they outsmarted the ones who tried to destroy them. If you enjoyed this story, its twists, its justice, its power, then don't leave without subscribing. More stories like this, filled with intensity, betrayal, redemption, and powerful endings, are waiting for you. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because you don't want to miss the next story, where justice strikes again.